one of the things that they certainly can do is whatever you decide, the labs you run, the nutraceutical intervention, pharmacotherapy, let's call it emerging therapies like IV therapy, whatever, create that standard and use that as the 80-20 rule. 80% of what I'm seeing, I'm going to do the standard, exactly. And then I'll use the last 20% to put finishing touches on it to connect with that particular patient.
Welcome back to another episode of the Charyse Williams Show. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited to bring to you this topic and a special guest. And so today what we're going to be jumping into are the 7 reasons that functional medicine practitioners stay stuck, but even better, how to break through that. And I have none other than the incredible Ryan Obermeier. Hey there, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am excellent. You guys, let me just share with you who Ryan is before we hop into it. So Ryan Obermeier is the Chief Commercial Officer with Evexia Diagnostics, and he has been in the nutraceuticals industry. He's been in business and sales and business development, more specifically, for the last 26 years or so. He is a breath of fresh air. He is a wealth of knowledge, and I could go on and on about Ryan, but I think you're going to get a better sense of who he is and his depth of information or depth of knowledge through our conversation today. So again, welcome, Ryan, so much. Welcome.
Thank you, man. I am excited to be here because we did not can any of this. Right. So I know we drafted a few questions a few months ago that I have not looked at those. So this is going to be off the cuff. So however I'm answering it is truly how I think and not pre-canned answer for sure.
Well, I love that. I think that's the best. That's one of my favorite things, right? Is really just to kind of speak off the cuff, just kind of riff and let the conversation just really unfold very organically. So I'm excited.
It totally is. Yeah. The whole concept of long form webinars or podcasts, I think, are just becoming more and more popular because it takes a little while to figure out who the person is, and in this case, get down to the right answers so we can hit the ground running with not creating some pre-canned answers, which historically are used in webinars.
Yeah, for sure. So let's hop into it. And I'll just preface this by saying these are not in any particular order, but we're going to give you 7, really the top 7 that come to mind when we think about the reasons why they get stuck. And then, like I said, how to break through them. So again, no particular order, but what's the first thing that comes to your mind, Ryan, when you think about the first thing that pops in your head when you think about, oh, that's why they're stuck?
Well, I certainly think it is the mindset of a business person or an entrepreneur. It's birds of a feather flock together. I think many people have heard that you are the average of your 5 closest relationships. And I think that's true in business as well. I've spent, actually, let me use my own experience. This is going to sound like I'm a braggart, but I'm not. I do have the opportunity to work with a couple billionaires. In fact, 3 of them in the last year I've worked with. They just look at things differently. And I think one of the greatest takeaways that I have had working with 3 different billionaires is they kind of do view the world similarly, but a lot differently than someone like me. I'm not a billionaire. What I've discovered is they're constantly in the future, and they're assuming all the steps that get them to whatever point in the future is, that those steps are going to be accomplished. They really don't waste their time with getting there. They kind of focus, or the majority of their mindset is really living in the future. Yeah. And so to answer your question succinctly, I would say one of the greatest challenges that someone might have or that's holding them back is, who do they associate with? What books are you reading? I think the common phrase is, you will be the same person that you are 10 years from now that you are today, apart from the books you read and the people you meet. Yeah. And I totally believe that's true. My reading's dramatically been reduced, but there was a point I was reading about a book a week, and I was just trying to gobble up as much information as I could. And now, with being around on Earth for a while, you gain a little bit of wisdom. And I guess it just naturally happened to me, but I've heard that it's good for people who are successful. I am actually more interested in other people than maybe sharing what I know. When I enter into conversations, and these billionaires are examples of it, is I'm more interested in them than necessarily what I can bring to the conversation. And I think those are, again, you're the same person you are today in 10 years from now, apart from the books you read and the people you meet. And not only that, I think having the curiosity when you actually meet people, I typically will get asked, or people will make statements about me. They're like, Ryan, you just ask questions nonstop. Like, you never even tell me about you. Like, you just want to know about me. And I don't know. I think I might have been always like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know what? That's how you learn. I mean, like, literally, that's how you expand. To your point, that's how you expand, who you are. That's how you expand your repertoire, if you will. Because if you're the one always doing all the talking, I mean, yeah, a lot of us like to be the smartest, quote unquote, the smartest person in the room. But if you're the smartest person in the room, you have no room to grow.
I agree. I was just in Savannah a couple of weekends ago, and there were people that were witness to a similar conversation that I was just talking about. And their answer was, someone who just needs to video you. Like, there needs to be a video camera behind you and follow in what you do. Apparently what I do is quite different than most conversations. I don't know. But they were entertained enough where they said a video camera needs to follow me. I think that they were just surprised on how many questions I asked about people. And I think I come off genuine too. I think that would be the other thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Yeah, and you might think about, like that. When you mentioned having a camera follow you, I immediately thought reality TV, like a whole camera crew following around you. But there's so much learning in that. Like I said, when you're the one asking the questions, again, you're gaining a lot of knowledge in this scenario or in those scenarios. So yeah. So I love that. So vision. You started out talking about vision. They have a vision, or billionaires particularly is what you were referring to, have a vision. They know where they're going. And then they kind of, if I'm understanding what you're saying, they kind of backstep their way into where they are today so that their steps moving forward are in alignment with ultimately that end goal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're probably referring to the Stephen Covey book, Start with the End in Mind. I believe
that book, by the way.
I like it. It's a long read for me.
It is long. I agree. Yes.
But one of the principles is starting with the end in mind. And the answer is yes. So casting a vision, I think, for any organization is really paramount. Do I think a vision needs to be cast on day one? No, because I do think, especially in the biz dev world, you need to roll up your sleeves and get your elbows dirty a little bit and kind of figure things out. But I think in a short time frame, within, I would say 12 to 18 months, you should have a pretty firm vision that's cast. And so historically, what I would say is the vision is, what's the preferred future? And preferred future to me means is if I go at 100 years and I look back at what I've done and what the company that I built has done, that's what you can go back to. So really the preferred future is this thing that is never really accomplished. Right. It's always part of the vision. It's the dream. And then you counterbalance that with the current reality. And then, historically, then you just start plotting away, right? So you would call them an LTO, long-term objective. So I'm here today. What does the business look like in 3-year increments is what I would historically call an LTO, long-term objective. And then most of us are familiar with tactical plans, right? So then you just break that 3-year goal down into annual goals, which historically have been called tactical plans. So I know I've done the Myers-Briggs, I think 3 or 4 times, and I do actually come out nearly balanced 50-50 right brain, left brain. Oh, yeah. So I do have not only the strategy, I also have the tactics too. And I think Myers-Briggs says it's like 13% of the population has a balance between right brain, left brain. So
yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I love statistics. So that being said, that actually makes me think about one of the things that just comes to mind when I come across, practitioners who are stuck, if you will. We'll just use the word stuck. But let me just say this. I love preferred future. I just want to put like, just, if you're listening to this and you're watching this and you're taking notes, like write down and highlight and underline preferred future. I love that terminology. And I think I'm actually going to adopt that, Ryan. So thank you. Thank you for that. But where I was going was, the other thing that comes to mind when I think about people being stuck is sales, right? Like particularly coming from the healthcare arena, nurses, nurse practitioners, even physicians. A lot of times we have like this, I don't know, connotation around sales. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
So there's a lot of things that come to mind when you ask this question. Number one is, if you truly believe in what you're doing, you're never really selling.
Yeah.
Right? You're just evangelizing. You truly believe with what you're saying. The other thing is, how do you view salespeople, right? I've never viewed salespeople as the used car salesman. I've always been in consultative sales. Mm-hmm. And so that's going back to asking a lot of questions and then serving up some options as far as solutions are concerned.
Yeah.
So one thing is, if you truly believe in what you're doing, you're never selling. With that stated, the exact opposite way to think about it is you're selling everything, right?
Isn't that
right? Everything
all the
I
time.
do. If I want to eat Italian and my wife wants to eat barbecue, I got to sell the heck out of Italian food for the evening, right?
For sure.
So that would be another thing with regards to sales. With regards to sales, and let's just call service lines in the practice, mm-hmm. and I typically have this conversation with regards to my current role in diagnostic laboratory testing, is when I started in the space 27 years ago, I had very frequent conversations of conflict of interest with the both prescription and sale of dietary supplements, where I didn't start when the industry began, but I certainly started in the industry when the industry took traction. And what I mean by that is, dietary supplement brands at that time were very regional. There was only one, maybe two brands that were national. But back then, it was very common to talk to physicians and they would say, well, isn't it kind of weird that I'm prescribing a supplement that I'm making money on? Well, fast forward 26 years that I've now been in the space. In a couple months, it's going to be 27. That conversation probably rarely ever happens, right? I was able to circumnavigate that discussion. And I'd always say, who do you think I bought my eyeglasses from? An optometrist. My daughter has braces. The orthodontist just didn't hand her braces. They sold us braces, right? And they're not cheap. Or if I go to a foot doctor and I need orthotics, I have to pay for orthotics. So I was really able, over years, and the acceptance of nutraceutical intervention and as an intervention for clinical practice, the conversation of conflict of interest kind of went away. Mm-hmm. What I did notice, though, and I've only been at Evexia for a year and a half, is there is still heartburn that is created with upcharging or making some money on lab testing. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's where this question is coming from, in the idea that if a business owner truly knew what we call time and motion, the amount of time it takes to place the order, receive the package, put the testing up on the shelf, ordering the testing, doing the interpretation, there is value to that. So mm-hmm. I am the former vice president of mergers and acquisition at Forum Health. And the physicians that I worked with, they were charging $500 or more for their time. So in every hour, mm-hmm. they're charging $500. Well, even if you just take 6 minutes to do all that, order it, receive a box, there's value in that. So I think where this question kind of comes from is, well, is there a reason why I, as a healthcare professional, would actually upcharge for diagnostic testing? And in certain states, you can't do it. So you do have to finagle with the semantics, like Florida as an example. But if you add a fee that says interpretation fee, you bypass the challenge of that. Yep. So I think if people truly understood how much it does, or how heavy of a lift it is to add laboratory testing to a practice and all of the unseen built-in costs of running it, I don't think that they would have the challenges of adding an additional line item of admin fee, interpretation fee, whatever you would want to call it locally. But again, I would say the biggest heartburn that I see, and again, I've been in the space forever, is where people don't have the issues anymore with dietary supplement sales because it's been widely accepted. But for whatever reason, lab testing, they still have a little bit of heartburn. So one of the things I classically will see is clinics offering bundles, where if someone comes in for a weight loss bundle, they just roll the lab testing into that. And then they can do a little bit of upcharging in that regard. So that might be a solution as well. But I truly believe that if a healthcare professional sat down and said, how much money is built into actually offering labs, I don't think they would have any problems upcharging the labs because they cost a lot of money to do that.
Right, for sure. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, that's one of the things that one of the ways in which I coach my clients is create a package, like make it easy, right? Most people, we are to where we are as a society, we kind of like just kind of all-inclusive. Tell me what the cost is. Like, don't nickel and dime it. Like, I don't want to.
Yes.
Yeah, just let me know the final figure. What is the cost? Drive out cost or whatever it's called. Just give me that number, and they're fine. And so, and I think the other thing, and Ryan, you really said it at the very beginning. You hit it. I look at sales as service, and I found that if people get like hung up on the term sales, first of all, we've got to recognize if you're in business, you need to have sales. Every business has sales, point blank, end of story, right? So if you're in business, you need sales. And then secondarily, you know, when you make it about the other person, when you truly make it about the other person and not about, not making it about me, it totally shifts. Because whenever we show up in service to that individual, again, it shifts to this is a service for you, and I am being of service to offer it versus, oh, what am I going to get, right? So it's a shift in perspective.
I agree. What I said earlier is if I truly believe with what I'm doing, I'm never really selling.
Yeah.
What you said is just, you're saying the exact same thing. You're just saying it a little bit different in the idea that I'm in service of my patient. I think there's a book called Servant Leadership. It's super short. You can probably read it inside of an hour, but it kind of gives you an idea if you need to change your mindset with regards to, hey, I need to be out there and selling my services. I think it might change the way that you view it, right? I think anything you hear or read, again, going back to the people you meet and the books you read, I'm going to be the same person I am 10 years from now, apart from those two things. Yeah. And if I am an entrepreneur, I do need a sales component to what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm not going to be in business very much longer. But it does come down to the idea of how do I view sales? Have I always thought of sales being negative or positive? You know, my view of sales was created when I was in college. This is a long time ago, 30 years ago. And this is when pharmaceutical sales actually were respected back in the day. And that was the sales job to have. So I've always had a very, very positive opinion of sales, and especially medical sales.
Yeah. No, that's so good, Ryan. So what else? What else comes to mind when you think about, some reasons that clinicians get stuck?
I think with regards to, in particular, labs, I would say one of the issues is they're always trying to fix things that are not necessarily broken. And I've met with some awesome healthcare professionals, and I would call them tinkerers. And one of the ways that they can protect themselves from tinkering, again, trying to fix things that aren't necessarily broken, is create standards, right? So that's kind of almost the oxymoron in the idea that I was in conventional care as a healthcare professional to jump into the integrative functional medicine is because I don't want standards, right? I don't want to be a healthcare practitioner. I want to be a physician, as an example, right? I want the creativity. But I think what happens is if you get stuck in this constant looking for better, I think it ultimately leads to decision fatigue, and decision fatigue leads to burnout, right? So one of the things that they certainly can do is whatever you decide, the labs you run, the nutraceutical intervention, pharmacotherapy, let's call it emerging therapies, like IV therapy, whatever, create that standard and use that as the 80-20 rule. 80% of what I'm seeing, I'm going to do the standard,
Exactly.
and then I'll use the last 20% to put finishing touches on it to connect with that particular patient. I think that would be the challenge is, the industry that we live in right now or work in, the new nomenclature is precision and personalized medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're new to the industry, or if you really take it literally, you're creating a new treatment plan for every single patient. And honestly, that was not going to last very long.
Fastest way to burn out. Fastest way to burn out. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I would buy medical practices and I would talk to physicians, some of them were in their 40s.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, just take my practice. I'll sell it to you for $1. I don't want it anymore because I'm so exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be something else to consider.
Yeah. And that's so important too, because, this is something that I say all the time. We're all here for a purpose, right? And we all have, no one can do what, I would say no one can do what you can do the way that you can do it. And it's so true, even though, we may all be in the functional medicine space, but the thing of it is that if you end up not kind of creating like SOPs, if you will, or systems, if you don't do that, it does lead to that burnout, and it leads to decision fatigue, which leads to burnout. And then you end up tapping out. And then ultimately, the world gets robbed of your gift. And
That's right.
so important, the SOP part of the standardization. I love 80-20. And that applies to everything in life, really, the 80-20 rule. So love that. I know another thing that I find is that kind of get people stuck at the very beginning, before they launch their business, or even once they're kind of in their business and maybe they start out as a generalist per se, is really determining a niche. What are your thoughts on that?
So one, you and I talked about this when we created these questions. I think it was probably 3 months ago or 2 months ago. This conversation just came up again. And this is what I think, is when the idea is, if you market to everybody, you market to nobody.
Exactly.
Would be an example.
Yeah.
And you can't, as a healthcare professional, you can't really handle that burden of marketing to everything. So if you're a provider who wants to treat everything, that's awesome. You can certainly do that, but you can't market to everything.
Right.
So the one thing I would do is I would divorce my marketing persona from what it looks like in a clinic setting, right? Mm-hmm. And when you and I spoke a few months ago, the idea is, let's say I want to be a hormone replacement therapy specialist. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest concerns, and it's going back to what I said earlier, is these healthcare professionals think, I'm going to get bored. If I just do hormone replacement therapy every patient for the rest of my life, it's going to get really boring really quickly. But again, that's your marketing persona. You only can be an expert in one thing according to the audience. But someone comes in with hormone replacement therapy, how frequently do they say, wow, I start to feel better. Now I want to look better.
Exactly.
So then you can get into medical aesthetics. And then how common do you have to start looking at gut health in order to get the hormones unlocked?
All the time.
And then if the gut isn't perfect, then how is the gut-brain axis?
Exactly.
It never ends. So the concern that I shared with you is I'm like, these doctors are they're going to be concerned about boredom, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to get concerned about getting niched out. I just don't see it that way anymore. I see it as, and when I had this conversation probably 2 weeks ago on a very similar program such as this, I really believe that the healthcare professional who understands I have to niche myself, they have to divorce who their marketing persona is and what that is doing versus what does the clinic really look like. Right. And I just gave you the clear example. I could promote myself as HRT, but now I'm in GI health. I'm now in gut-brain connection. I'm in medical aesthetics.
Right.
I could get into thyroid health. There's a million directions that could go in. I, as a healthcare professional, I'm never going to be bored. But going back to the concept, if I market to everything, I market to nothing. Yeah. And you just can't do it. You cannot market to everything because you will never stop working. You will always have something on your plate, and that's awesome initially, but over time you will be burned out.
I was going to say we're back to burnout. We're back to decision fatigue and burnout. right? And and you're so right. When you're, I verbalize it slightly different, but like when you're speaking to everybody, you're speaking to no one. No one hears it. It falls on deaf ears. But again, if you have that specificity and you're speaking, as I like to call it, their language, like what are they experiencing as it relates to hormones? What are they experiencing, particularly as it relates to thyroid or whatever it is? Then they can then raise their hand and say, "Oh, me! Like I need to work with you. You're the solution to my problem." Versus the opposite, which is, "Oh, she helps everybody with everything, but can she help me with my specific thing?" Right? And the thing that we always have to remember is everything is connected. Everything is connected. So I love how you made the distinction of divorcing divorcing your marketing from what's actually shown up in the clinic. That's so great. I think that those of you who are listening or watching, like, let that land, because that's good. That's so good, Ryan.
And I didn't even think of that until I was in that conversation a couple of weeks ago, because I was trying to work myself through this conversation. And this particular webinar was with a marketing expert organization or firm. And they started talking me through it. And I was actually I was offering up sincere questions, I guess, going back to how we started today's conversation. And I'm just curious. And by working through it in my own mind, it actually helped me solidify what I really think. And I do think your marketing persona is just not the way it looks like in the clinic setting. So.
Right. All right, Ryan, that's like really a good point as well. And so what else comes up when you think about what keeps people stuck? So we talked about, the sales piece of it. We talked about the marketing or the niching down, and kind of some concerns about that. We talked about the importance of really, really creating some type of system like SOPs and really applying the 80-20 rule. What else comes up? What about visibility? I get that one a lot. Just the fear of visibility. You want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, so what I think, well, I know, it's not even a think, I know. They did a survey several years ago with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and I believe it was 1,500 of their members responded to a survey on various aspects of the practice. The only thing that actually impacted one's success, as measured by revenue, was public speaking. They, for example, one of the areas of the survey was, hey, if I adopt technology, how much does it impact my take home? What about if this was back in the day when they were talking about micro practices? So it'd be a provider plus maybe one staff member under 1,000 square foot. That was very popular 10 to 15 years ago, so on and so forth. But at the end of the survey, what they really determined was public speaking. Your ability to public speak, ultimately sell, was the only determinant of, or had the significant impact on your take home, and it was 28%. So if you could speak publicly, and then speak publicly, you could dramatically impact your take home or your salary, essentially. And then it just comes down to, how do I find that, right? Churches, great.
Chambers.
Better chamber of commerce, those types of things. Where I used to live in Dallas, Texas, they would have natural grocers, smaller health food stores or grocery stores that are bent towards health foods. You could literally do a presentation on weight loss, thyroid, and hormones every day of the week, and you will never not have a full house.
It is so true.
You'll always have a full house. So again, trying to find the niche, but then also understanding that, hey, if I want to give this a go and I want to scale this business and I want to be successful as a measurement of financial success, I have to be able to public speak, right?
That's right.
And that's in a nutshell. It's not what I think. It's I know this, right?
Right. Yeah. And the thing of it is, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, if you think of like all the luminaries in the industry, they're public speakers. They're on stage. They're in front of cameras. And that's what they can do. That's not to say that you can't be successful without it, but you're not going to be anywhere nearly financial successful unless you can get out and be on camera or in front of people.
So true. And I just want to state this, because It doesn't have to necessarily be a large stage. It doesn't have to. Like, I mean, to your point with the Chamber of Commerce, it could even be like a health food store. People are kind of, transient, kind of coming and going. It could be a yoga studio. One of the things that I always, recommend is one of the easiest ways, one of the ways to make your business easier or your business growth easier is to just go where your ideal clients are. Go where they are. So if you work with women, and let's say, for instance, women specific, let's just say women over 40. You know what I mean? Women over 40 take Pilates and yoga. Go partner with your neighbor. And there's probably in every neighborhood, there's a yoga or a Pilates or something studio or even places like GNC, or places similar to GNC, supplement store. Like there's all types of places that you can partner with where it's not a large stage, because I know a lot of people, they're listening, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to be in front of on a large stage. But guess what? Any place can be, quote unquote, a stage. It could be it could be, like I said, a stage of 20 people in the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
5 people. How about start there? Even 5, and then your confidence will start to grow. And the reality of it is, even this is a stage. You're in the comfort of your home or wherever you are behind a camera or in front of a camera, technically. But this, in essence, is the stage. And one thing that I know about practitioners, whether you're a nurse, nurse practitioner, even a physician, we love to educate. That's because that's what we do on a regular basis anyway. It might be one-to-one, but education is one of the things that we do. So share your knowledge. Now, I will say there needs to be a little bit, you should have a format to it. There's definitely a way, there's a difference between speaking to just educate and then also speaking to convert. That's a whole other topic for a whole other, story, the session. But nonetheless, I would just encourage, the ones that are listening to not think of it like, oh my God, I have to be on a huge stage. You can absolutely, like, sign me up for that any day, all day of the week. I'm there for it. But if you're just starting and that might sound intimidating, just start small. 5 people.
Yeah. Yeah. And
whatever.
Back in the day when they really researched shared medical appointments or group visits, they actually keyed in, it's about 16 is a perfect number. So if you get in front of 16 people at any given time, it's a large enough event where you've spent your time wisely. But it's not big enough where they don't feel comfortable with raising their hand with questions at the end of your presentation. Yeah. So again, 16 people is not a lot of people.
It's not a lot of people. It's not. And again, if you're listening, you're like, well, it's a lot to me. Start with 5. Start with 2. Build your way up. It's like anything else. The more you do something, the more proficient you get, the more comfortable you get. And then again, your confidence grows. And before you know it, you're in front of 16. And then
I agree. With smaller groups, what will happen is the audience members will start talking to each other, and then you'll just be a part of the conversation. So it's not even like you're presenting either.
Yeah. I agreed. So so visibility, huge. And like I said, if there's one point that I would just drive home is go where your potential clients or patients are already. Make it easy on yourself. So that being said, any other ones? I think we covered, oh gosh, I don't know if we're up to 7. I lost track already, but we've covered quite a few. Anything else come to mind when you think about?
Yeah, I think the last one we talked a little bit about when we created this presentation or this discussion was what I would call poverty complex.
Oh, that's a good one, Brian.
And so this is the idea that the way that I explain it is don't spend your neighbor's dime. And what I've discovered is a lot of healthcare professionals, they will not offer something to their patient because they wouldn't believe that they would spend the money. And I can tell you, way more times that I could ever count, is you would be surprised with the patients who you might not suspect have the means to pay for something, or you would not suspect that they would be willing to pay for it. They're oftentimes the ones that will. When I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I was surprised on how much new money will spend money and old money does not.
That's so good. It is so true.
And maybe the old money would say, well, that's why we have money, because we didn't spend it. I totally understand that as well. The other thing that I would say is a lot of people who maybe would be on the lower socioeconomic part of the continuum. I've been so surprised so many times that these patients will spend whatever they need to get better, almost to the point of like creating admiration in my mind towards these people, where you know that they're foregoing something to get well. And that it's just happened way too many times. A lot of my career has been in large metropolitan areas, but a lot of my career has been in also rural areas as well. Rural West Texas, rural Missouri, rural Oklahoma, Texas, Illinois, rural Illinois. I've worked a lot. And I just think maybe this might illustrate the point. So when I would present on this particular topic, is I would always say, don't spend your neighbor's dime. And the example would be, if my friend came to me and said, hey, you need to get this TV bundle where it's 1,000 channels for like $100 or $150, that might not even be important to me. I may not even care about TV. I'd want to spend my $100 somewhere else. And I think as a healthcare professional, you do have to guard yourself against poverty complex. Do not spend your neighbor's dime. It is your job as their healthcare provider to give them options and let them make their own decision on what those options would be. And I would be willing to bet you're going to be surprised more times than you're not on who takes you up on that.
Yeah, I so agree with that. So agree with that. And you said it a little bit differently than I always say, don't count their pocketbook. I know pocketbook's like an old term because I've heard that for years. Like, you don't know. And people will spend money and invest money in the way that they deem important, to your point, Ryan. And so I think it really does a disservice to them to make the decision. None of us want anybody to make a decision for us. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your age bracket is. I don't care what your socioeconomic status is. None of us want someone to make a decision for us, right? So present the best option, right? Present the best option for them and let them decide. And if that means that you guys have to co-create something, great, fabulous, great. You know, maybe that's what's called for in that moment. But again, nine times out of 10, my personal experience has been when they trust that you are giving them the best solution, they're like, okay, let's do it. And particularly if they've had to run around like in the traditional healthcare system where they're just kind of bopping from doctor to doctor and specialist to specialist, and they still don't have answers. And then they find someone that's in the functional medicine space that really can give them answers and support and guidance and help. They're like, please, like, here's my card, take my money. And, you know, I'm saying that a little facetiously, but sometimes it is actually just like that. They're just so grateful that they found someone that can actually help them.
It certainly is like that.
Yeah. So we have done a pretty good job, Ryan. I think we've done a pretty good job. Anything else come to mind before we wrap up? So I'll just do a quick recap. We talked about poverty complex. We actually just talked about poverty complex, and that may be where we should have started, but nonetheless, it's a big one. It's a big one. Sales. And not feel like you have to take on like whatever your persona of sales is. I think sometimes people think that they have to take on a totally different persona, and it's not. It's really showing up in service. We talked about having a niche and the importance that niche plays into your marketing, and divorcing. Say it for me. Say it, Ryan. Divorcing your marketing.
I would say divorcing your marketing persona from what exactly happens in the clinic.
I love it. I love it. We talked about simplifying and for really preventing burnout by really systematizing and creating SOPs, operating from the 80-20 rule, having that 20% customization. And we talked about the importance of visibility. Getting yourself out there, getting yourself in front of your ideal clients or your ideal patients. Go to where they are anyway, and watch how your business expands. Watch how rapidly your business expands. So, anything else come to mind before we move into our rapid fire questions, Ryan?
I'd leave you with just two things. Number one is don't forget to schedule 1 or 2 days a month to work on the business as opposed to the business. So creating that preferred future and following through. And then number two is if you're looking for some growth capital, or if you're looking to exit the business in the next 3 to 7 years, start working yourself out of the business, meaning the more that you're responsible for the revenue that's getting generated out of your business, the less your business is valued. The more that other people are driving revenue and you're not participating in that and you're more driving the ship, the more your practice is valuable. So those are the two things. Work on your business and try to work yourself out of the business.
That is so good. Oh my God. Y'all need to go back and listen to that part right there. Because it's so true. We could just do like a little, if I wish I had a mic, I do have a mic, but I wish I could just drop the mic right there for you, Ryan, because that's really good. Really positioning yourself, position your business to sell eventually, if that is your desire. But yeah, and removing yourself from the equation as it relates to revenue generation. So love it. Love it, love it, love it. So you ready to hop into our rapid fire?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Without thinking too hard, Ryan, who was your childhood celebrity crush?
I know you asked me this before we got on this. It's like 30 years ago.
I know.
I don't even know if I could. I don't know.
Like
I don't
anyone
know
from
if
like Saved by the Bell, or I'm trying to think of what shows were popular back then. What was like your favorite TV show?
I can't remember that far back either. I would say, let's say Kelly Kapowski by Saved by the Bell, but I don't know if I really paid too much attention to that. But
That's funny. Okay, well, cool. All right, so this one might be a little bit easier for you. Who's one person who you would trade if you could only pick one person? Who would you trade places with for a day?
gosh, I should have taken a look at these questions. Who could I change for a day? I think I would probably say my wife. I know that's a weird answer, but I would just like to see how I am viewed from her perspective.
That's interesting.
Again, I'm just more interested in other people than myself, so I like to see how she views my comments and things like that.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. And now that you mention it, I'm like, I would actually like to trade places with my husband too, just to see it from his perspective, to see me from his perspective. That's a good one, Ryan. I like that. All righty. Guilty pleasures. What is one of your guilty pleasures?
My guilty pleasure is, I guess, a beer while watching my sport's collegiate football, and I'm a Guinness guy, so I like drinking a Guinness while watching the Wisconsin Badgers.
There you go.
And then I'm not embarrassed to say either. I would say my family kind of splurges one meal a week, so we get a little bit crazy, and so I don't mind doing the dessert and the whole thing on that either. So
what's your favorite? Are you like a chocolate person or like?
My favorite dessert is, this is going to be another weird answer for you. And I'm sure it's for most people. I love rice pudding.
Oh, I love rice pudding. Listen.
It's not sweet. It's sweet enough.
Yes.
That's where you're trying to get to, right?
Yes.
And a lot of the sweetness is actually just the vanilla. So vanilla acts as a sweetener, which it's really not going to affect. So yeah, I like rice pudding, a little bit of cinnamon on top of it. I think we're good to go on that.
That sounds so good right now. That sounds so good. And I actually they're totally different, but I like bread pudding as well. Do you like bread pudding, or is that not your thing?
I don't know if I've ever had it. I will say some of the things, I know people love creme brulee, but that is way too much sugar for me.
It's super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know people love it, but that would be an example of what everyone loves that I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
The other things I like is Swedish fish, which is
no way.
I've loved it ever since a kid. I don't know why. It's kind of got a funky flavor to it, and I like kind of like funky stuff that doesn't taste like this, like everything else.
That is so funny. I'll never forget when I heard that term. I didn't know what that was. When I heard that term, this was like 30 years ago. I was in nursing school, and we were doing we were having like a potluck or something, and everyone was kind of sharing what they were going to bring. And then someone said Swedish fish. I'm like, who brings fish to a pot? It was just weird the way and I'm like, what is Swedish fish? And then I found out what it was. And I'm like, okay, but that's still weird to bring to a potluck, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It was funny.
If you ever go to IKEA, they have the little food court. I don't know what the flavor of Swedish fish is, but they have a prickly pear soda from their soda fountain, and it does taste very similar to Swedish fish. So I don't know if I don't even know what the flavor is of the gum.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Oh my gosh. Okay. What is the best compliment you've ever gotten?
I would say probably what I said earlier today. I'm quite fascinated that people are amazed that I never think of myself first. In other people. I don't know if I've always had that or if I've learned that over my career or life, but that'd probably be the most, like if people said, hey, I think video cameras should follow you just because I ask more questions than I make statements. I don't know. I thought that was pretty, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. So that'd probably be my greatest compliment is that.
I love it. I love it. What about this? What would you say is the biggest risk you've ever taken?
I'm a risk taker.
Are you?
Oh yeah. I bought 3 or 4 houses sight unseen.
Oh my God. That's a big risk.
I mean, not that anyone cares, but I am heavily invested in the stock market.
Oh.
Almost all my money's in the stock market, which today is not the greatest thing.
That's what I was saying. Like, oh gosh.
I did martial arts instead of team sports. Like almost my entire life has been against the grain, and that's kind of how I ended up in the integrative functional medicine world, is against the grain at that time.
Yeah.
It was a lot different. We're now it's kind of like this is where the trend is, right? But
yeah.
I'm almost 30 years ago. It's a lot different. So, but yeah, I'm a risk taker, and
I would not
that it's not calculated, but yeah, I bought like several houses sight unseen. Several.
Wow. How did your wife take that? Like, is she just used to like just go on with the flow, or was she
she's
like
right along? She's right along with it.
Nice.
We've lucked out at every juncture of risk taking, so we just keep on going until we probably get bitten. But yeah.
I love that. I would have never guessed that about you. That was actually one of my questions. I was going to ask you, like, what's one thing, like, tell me something that people don't know about you, but that fits. That checks the box on that one. I would have never thought you were like that big of a risk taker. So that's pretty cool. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
I think this applies to a lot of people. I don't know if anyone's going to agree to me, but I hear adults telling teenage children that if they love what they do for a career, they'll never work a day in their life. I think that's total BS. I think that I think success breeds passion. I don't think I think if you pursue happiness as a career, I think that is very, very, very bad advice. I would say you can create passion, but passion needs to be bred through success. So what I mean by that is I didn't have passion for dietary supplement sales. I didn't even know that dietary supplement sales existed.
Yeah.
But I got pretty good at it, and it became a passion of mine. And now anyone who knows me knows that I'm very passionate about this industry. In fact, I'm very protective of this industry with everything that's going on right now.
Yeah.
A lot of the mergers and acquisitions and just the way the industry is moving. But yeah, I think that would be the worst advice I've heard, or at least off the top of my head, is don't pursue your happiness for a career, pursue success, and that success will breed passion. And with passion, you have unstoppable momentum.
That's interesting. I like it. It's different. It's definitely different. And I think I would take, and I definitely can see that probably the opposite perspective from the point of innovation, because I think if it's something that if it's your passion, it brings you joy, then be innovative and figure out how you can monetize it in a very innovative way so that you're still experiencing the level of joy. Like when it starts to not become joyful or happy or make you happy, then I think you may be doing it wrong. But I look at it from a place of innovation. Like, let it spark your innovation to create something. That's my take.
I think we're kind of saying the same thing though, because if you want to be innovative, you have to get it out to the masses, right? At some level. And then that's success. And success is I'm more passionate about what I do.
Yeah. I think it's a continuum for sure. So that's cool. All right. Last question. Okay. Actually, I'm going to change my question. I had a question, but I'm going to change it slightly. If you were stuck on a deserted island, what's the one thing non-negotiable that you would have to have with you?
Unlimited music supply.
I'm with you. I am with you. I gotta have
music over movies quite a bit. So I love music and I love it all. So
yeah, I love that. Oh my God. Well, Ryan, this has been so much fun, particularly learning more about you at the very, very end. But this whole conversation has brought to light so many important nuggets that I think, that we all need to tune into, that we can extract so much value from. And here's the thing: it's not only about consuming this information, because it's been a lot of great information, but now what are you going to do with it when you move forward, right? That's always the question. Implementation over information. So any last thoughts, Ryan, as we wrap up today?
No, I had a great time today. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Looking forward to the next one. And
Same. So then again, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with us. And those of you that are listening or watching, thank you for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you. And we'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.